Hello everyone. In today's session, we are starting with a new chapter, biotechnology and its applications. So this is the second part or the second chapter in the unit biotechnology. We have already completed the first chapter, that is biotechnology, principles and processes, in which we have understood various techniques involved in biotechnology or genetic engineering, recombinant DNA technology, and the polymerase chain reaction, downstream processing, various aspects we have understood, right? And the application of the knowledge or the principles of biotechnology in various fields in order to get the benefit for the mankind is what biotechnology and its applications, right? Here, of course, we know biotechnology can be applied in different fields in order to get, maybe in the field of the pharmaceuticals, the therapeutics, therapy, different types of therapies, diagnostics. So these basically in the field of medicine, and in the field of agriculture for with the help of genetically modified crops and even genetically modified animals also, right? Like good milk yielding cows or wool yielding sheeps, like that. So genetically modified animals and crops, food processing, right? In the food industry, bioremediation means, so in order to rejuvenate the lost resources of the nature, bioremediation, right? And also purifying the air, purifying the water, all that, waste treatment, then energy production, right? Energy production mainly in the form of single cell protein, all that. See, all these are various uses, all these are various applications for of biotechnology. But we mainly have three critical research areas where biotechnology is mainly used or mainly applied. So broad applications of biotechnology are mainly found in these three areas. Why so? It is because, see, we will understand what are those three critical research areas, and automatically we will understand why it is so critical. Best catalyst in the form of microbe or enzyme, right? So biotechnology aims at preparing or producing a catalyst. So in the form of, that catalyst may be in the form of an organism, mostly in the form of a microorganism, right? Or it can be in the form of enzyme. So large scale production of this catalyst in order to produce another product of interest. So this is very important, and biotechnology is involved in analyzing and understanding and preparing that useful catalyst, maybe in the form of enzyme or in the form of microbe. This is first thing. And optimal conditions, providing the optimal conditions, not only preparing that microbe or enzyme which is acting as a catalyst, also biotechnology plays a very important role in preparing or in providing an optimal conditions for the catalyst to act, right? So only if the catalyst is produced, and if there is no proper medium where exactly the catalyst can act, so then it's of no use, right? All the efforts put in this particular step will go in vain. So that is why this is also an important step which is looked after during the process. Then after getting when the catalyst acts upon in a particular medium, and when the product comes out, that product will be what you know, that separation and purification will be done. That is what is called downstream processing. During this also biotechnology plays a very important role. So these are the three basic research areas. That means, so biotechnology is involved in improvisation of these three steps. So that is why these are the three critical research areas of biotechnology. In this chapter, we are going to study how best biotechnology can be used in the field of agriculture, mainly in the increase of yield of different crops, and how to control the pests or weeds in the crop field, in the agricultural farmland, right? And also in the field of medicine, how can we prepare the antibiotics, how can we genetically modify an organism, maybe an animal or a plant, in order to cure or overcome any kind of deformity or a disease, that is in the field of medicine, and how to prepare the transgenic plants and animals, especially animals, in order to get good yield of the milk or the meat or the wool or something else, right? And also we will learn about, after studying all the applications, we will also learn about the ethical issues. That means how we have to make use of these applications of biotechnology in a frame of what? Ethical arguments. That means how can we make use of this without going against the nature, without harming the nature, or without harming ourselves, right, in future. Now, first let us look into the applications of biotechnology in agriculture. In agriculture. So, when we talk about agriculture, growing of food crops, right? This field mainly aims at increasing the yield, right? So, agriculture yield has to be increased, and that is what is the beneficial aspect there. So, from the point of economy also, from the point of food industry also, right? And from the point of survival of the farmer also. So when looking from all the angles how to improve agriculture, there are three different approaches to do so. One thing is, what is that? Agrochemical based farming. Agrochemical based farming. That means, so when the question arises, how to improve the yield of the crop in an agricultural land. So one approach can be usage of the agrochemical, what is that, pesticide sprays or weedicide sprays, etc. By spraying them on the crop, we can keep away the pests or the weeds, and we can let the crops to grow full-fledged, and yield can be increased. This is one way. Second way is, what is that? Organic farming. Organic farming is a way actually utilized conventionally or traditionally in India and various and in other countries also. See, this is exactly opposite to the agrochemical based farming, right? Because in the case of agrochemical farming, the chemicals that are sprayed on the plants, maybe of course immediately they might help the crop to yield good amount of the, that is the product, but in the long run they may harm the soil fertility because of the destruction of the flora, that is the different weeds. So there will be an interdependency of the different plants and different microorganisms and different organisms in that land, in that crop land, that will be destroyed in the long run. That's going to harm, and it's going to completely ruin the soil fertility, and the yield will be disturbed later. So that is why this is avoided because of its own, what is that, drawbacks. Whereas organic farming, though it's a slow yielding process, though it will not yield you a huge product in a very short duration of time, but still for consistency purpose and for the well-being of the soil, for the well-being of the other organisms present there, so this organic farming is practiced, right? And the third aspect in order to improve the agricultural yield is usage of genetically modified crops, genetically engineered crop based agriculture, genetically engineered crop based agriculture. So this is the third one, right? So like this, in agriculture we mainly have three approaches in order to improvise the yield of the crop. But as we go for agrochemical farming or organic farming, so they have got their own plus points, they have got their own drawbacks. And what about genetically modified or genetically engineered crops? Here you might have heard about something called Green Revolution. Green Revolution, it took place all over the world, even including India, in the decade of 1960, where huge number of or huge rate in the increase of the agricultural yield that was witnessed all over the world. Okay, all the agricultural crops, they were improved drastically. This was mainly because of the usage of the agrochemicals. Okay, so it was partly by the usage of the genetically modified crops, but mainly by the good management skills and also the usage of agrochemicals. But later, very soon, like in a very few years, they understood that this had a drawback. This actually, what is that, ruined the soil fertility. There is a variation in the soil pH because of the excess usage of the agrochemicals, right? This also harmed the crops later. That means in the future generations, like after 4 or 5 yields, so when you sow the crops once again, those crops were affected because of the variation in the soil pH, right? The soil fertility was harmed. So that was realized, and that is when people started thinking of an alternative way where we should not be harming the soil fertility, but at the same time we should also get good yield in a very quick time. How to do so? Definitely organic farming is not an option for that, because organic farming is a very traditional technique which will yield eventually, not immediately. So the only option was what? Genetically, in order to use the genetically engineered crops. Let us now see what are the benefits of genetically engineered crops over the usage of the agrochemicals or by farming organically. So let us now look into the benefits of genetically modified crops. So advantages of genetically modified crops. GM stands for genetically modified crops. More often we also use the short form GMO, meaning genetically modified organisms. So what is genetically modified organism? It can be any organism, maybe a microorganism, maybe a fungi, maybe a bacterium, maybe an animal, maybe a plant, whose genetic makeup has been modified in order to get the benefit in one or the other way. That is what is called as genetically modified organism. Now we are talking about the benefits that we get by usage of the genetically modified crops in agriculture. So more tolerant to abiotic stress. Genetically modified crops are made more tolerant for abiotic stress. So we call them as stress tolerant plants or stress tolerant crops. They may be salt resistant, maybe drought resistance, maybe cold resistant. So depending upon the requirement, so genetic modification can be made in order to make a crop stress tolerant. So this abiotic stress tolerant makes the plant, so it will be resistant to the variation in the environmental conditions. Sometimes extreme cold conditions, sometimes extreme hot conditions, or extreme salinity in the soil. So all these aspects, these are nothing but abiotic stress on the plant. So this stress can be tolerated and it can be withstood, and it will be made unaffectable for the production of the yield of the plant. So that is one thing. So such modification, genetically modification, that can be obtained. Second one, reduced reliance on chemical pesticides. See, I have already told you what is the drawback of usage of the chemicals on the croplands, right? So in order to retain the soil fertility, in order to not harm the other organisms, microflora and other fauna, small organisms, maybe forming an interdependency in between the different plants or other organisms. So in order not to destroy those organisms, so usage of the chemicals have to be stopped, right? So this genetically modified crops will be pest resistant crops. Genetically they have been modified to resist those pests or those insects which are going to harm them. Like for example, there is one example, beetle worm, right, or mosquitoes. See, if these mosquitoes or beetle worms are going to feed upon the leaves of a particular crop plant, then there can be a gene inserted into the plant itself, and this gene may be from any other microorganism like a bacterium or fungus. That gene is inserted into this, and this gene is responsible for the production of a protein, and that protein will act against that pest. Andre ಈಗ ನೋಡಿ, the plant is there, some crop is there, ಈ crop ನ ಮೇಲೆ some X insect ಇದನ್ನ leaf ನ feed ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. Now because of the feeding of this insect on the leaf, the yield will be reduced greatly. There will be a huge loss to the farmer. How to reduce this without spraying chemicals? One thing we can do is we need to genetically modify that crop. What to do? In the cells of that plant, in the plant cell, what we can do is we can insert a gene that can produce a toxic substance. That toxic substance should be destroying this insect. So ಇದನ್ನ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಾಯ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಟಾಕ್ಸಿಕ್ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್, ಈಗ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಇನ್ಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಲೈಕ್ ಎ ಫಂಗಸ್, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಅ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಟೀರಿಯಂ ವಿಚ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಇನ್ಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಪಾನ್ ದಟ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಇನ್ಸೆಕ್ಟ್, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಅ ಬೀಟಲ್ ವರ್ಮ್ ಅಥವಾ ಬಾಲ್ ವರ್ಮ್ ಅಂತ ಏನು ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಯಾವ ಜೀನ್ ಇದನ್ನ ಇನ್ಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಯಾವ ಟಾಕ್ಸಿನ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಜೀನ್ ಇನ್ಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು, ಸೊ ಬೈ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಜೀನ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಟ್ pathogen, right, and inserting that into the plant body, and so plant body ಮೇಲೆ ಇದು feed ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ what happens there, that chemical producing gene is already present in that plant, and definitely it's going to die because of the feeding on the plant. So that is how plant is self reliant, it is self pest resistant. This is the beauty of what? Biotechnology. This is the beauty of genetically modified crops, right? So anyway, we are going to study this mechanism in detail with the help of one example. Then reduced post harvest losses. What is the meaning of this? Sometimes it happens so, especially when people grow paddy or groundnut or maybe sunflower, any particular plant for that matter. ಅಲ್ಲಿ post harvest ಆದ ನಂತರ, after harvest the expected yield may not be available, may not be got. It is maybe because with the husk, the paddy with husk may be weighing so much. After the harvesting, what may happen? The husk remove ಮಾಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ the weight of the paddy may be less, because actual seeds formation ಆಗಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು they are very small because the husk has become very thick, right? So ಈ ಥರದ್ದು post harvest losses ಇದು ಮೊದಲೇ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ loss. So the farmer may think that he has got a very good yield by looking at the bunch of the grains, right? But he will know about it only after harvesting. Such post harvest losses can be avoided because we are actually inserting our desired genes in that crop, so that we can reduce such losses. That is one more thing, right? Then efficient usage of minerals. That means, see, when plant body is made efficient to use the available minerals in its environment, what happens there? The excess loss of minerals or excess use of minerals or wastage of the minerals will be stopped, as a result of which soil fertility will not be disturbed greatly, right? In order to maintain a proper soil fertility, this will help. That means efficient usage of minerals by genetically modified crops. And also enhanced nutritional value. It is not only to enhance the quantity of the yield, it is also to increase the quality, both quality and quantity. Like for example, golden rice anta one produce ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, which is the rice rich with vitamin A can be produced. Now nutritional value of the crop plants can also be altered, can also be enhanced by using genetically modified crops. So just by inserting one gene which is responsible for producing the vitamin A in the rice grains can do that work of increasing or enhancing the nutritional aspect of that, right? So these are the advantages of genetically modified crops over agrochemical based agriculture or organic farming, right? Now let us look into other aspects or other applicabilities of biotechnology in the field of agriculture, especially as in the production of pesticide resistant plants, or we can say pest resistant plants. pest resistant plants. So let us study how we can produce pest resistant plants. How can we make the plant it's a tailor made plant anta heltivi now. Tailor made plant means the plant the way we want, the how much yield we want, what quality of yield, what quantity of yield. So all that we want can be obtained by in the plant by genetically modifying that crop plant. So let us learn that how can we produce pest resistant plants. See, there is a bacterium called Bacillus thuringiensis. A bacterium called Bacillus thuringiensis. A bacterium will be having certain genes, and this bacterium will produce a toxic chemical. That means with the help of certain genes present in this bacterial cell, those toxic chemicals are produced which can act against certain pests or insects. Like for example, I can consider this chemical produced by the Bacillus thuringiensis, which is called as the toxin. The toxin produced by the Bacillus thuringiensis can kill the insects of different classes such as Lepidopterans, Coleopterans and Dipterans. Which example? See, these are the different classes of the insects. Class Lepidoptera, class Coleoptera, class Diptera. Bere bere class na insect galanna kill maduvanta capacity, the toxin produced by this Bacillus thuringiensis, it will have that capacity, right? So it is just a common knowledge. That means in the nature which is antagonistic to which organism. Yava organism ge yaudu viruddha, yava organism ge yaudu favor anta ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. Now we have found out one fact that Bacillus thuringiensis will act against certain insects belonging to this particular families or different groups. Like for Lepidoptera, we can consider the example of tobacco bollworm, tobacco budworm and armyworm. Tobacco budworm and armyworm. Okay, these can be the examples. For Coleoptera, you can consider the example of beetles. Here for Dipterans, mosquito, and you can also consider the example of flies, etc. Okay, so these insects which infect upon different plants can be stopped. The infection or the feeding upon, or you can say the harmful effect of these insects on different plants can be stopped by making use of the gene that is present in Bacillus thuringiensis. So now we need to identify which particular gene is acting particularly against which insect. Andre idralli genes tumba ide. The gene responsible for production of this toxin will be called as cry gene. Cry, CRY gene anta kariteve. Crystalline gene anta kariteve. Okay, because the toxic chemical produced by the Bacillus thuringiensis, it will be in the form of crystalline protoxin. It will be in the form of crystalline protoxin. Protoxin anta yaake kariteve anta helidre, because see that chemical, the toxic chemical, when it is produced within the Bacillus thuringiensis, how it will not harm on its own body, on its own cell? It is because when it is produced within its own cell, it will be in the form of inactive protoxin, in the crystalline inactive protoxin. In the crystalline form it is, and it is called as inactive protoxin.